Obviously, recently you joined the Ground Zero lineup, and you were talking about how you dropped a lot of information on them. And I think we've also touched on the sort of personality level of Counter Strike. So when you're, because we do have quite a few personalities in the scene of Australia, when you come into a team, how much emphasis do you place on getting to know those people and learning how to deal with maybe, I don't know, I feel like toxic is an overused word, but do you know what I mean? Like a player that can get a bit emotional in those teams. What's the sort of steps that you would take, if any, that you can sort of, I don't know, fix is the right word, but sort of
Yeah.
adjust to that?
That question varies from person to person, right? So for
Hmm.
me, um, well, look, I think the better way to start that is someone like Tux, right? He knows that his team is extremely good.
Hmm.
Regardless, the core is very strong. The core roster, mainly himself and Texter. I guess now Blitz. Um, so if he comes into he adds players to his roster and they're not working hard enough, they're messing around in practice, man. He'll give you a couple of warnings, man, but then he'll just chop you. He'll
Yeah.
just chop you from the team, right? But not everyone has that luxury, man. Like you got obviously contracts in play, you don't have replacement options. The best way to do it, man, is like you try your best to fix it, and then look, you can't let people drag you down.
Yeah.
You need to make moves in your roster.
Yeah.
But you don't just chop instantly. Obviously, like you give it a fair go. Like this is what I require from you. This is what you're not doing at the moment, and it's only fair for the whole roster. Everyone's trying to chase that dream, trying to make those international qualifiers and be successful. And if you got players that don't have the right attitude for it, man, like a couple of warnings later, and you got to make a change. So I think at a lower ish level, maybe order somewhat, and then every team under that. You don't have the luxury of just going and getting whatever player you want, like a Chiefs or a Greyhound, right? Or a
Yeah.
Renegades, for that matter. We don't have those options, and that's not to say like there's players on my roster that I'd remove. Like I'm not trying to, badmouth anyone or whatever like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just in general, like to deal with that, you need to just allow the player to fix it, man. They need to have it in them to really be motivated and fix those issues that they have, and you need to make it known to them respectfully. You should all respect each other. And one of the uh, the things that I like to have in my team is integrity and honesty, and no little steam chats going on in the
Yeah.
background, and I've heard this and that.
Yeah.
Just play it straight up front, right?
Hmm.
And that's important as well. So it's all like a combination of things, but in general, there's no magic way to fix it, man. It's all on a person.
Right. So we touched on the top three, I guess. And for the longest time, it's been top four with the old Tainted Minds roster. But
Yeah.
now I guess it would be that top three, unless would you count Avant maybe? Would you say that they've? I don't know if they've shown enough to say they're top. They've.
I'd put them at fourth. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd put them at fourth for sure.
So what would you say? Because obviously I've talked to some other people
Mhm.
and they have varying opinions on it. But what would you say? How do teams like Ground Zero and teams like Paradox and Genuine, how do you, is it possible, and how do you bridge that gap between those teams and the top three?
The gap is still quite large, man. Like
Yeah.
aside from Avant making a genuine upset in a qualifier, right? I'm not talking like you beat them in a map or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they took an international spot away from Order. That's no easy feat, right? The gap is still like quite big. Um, how far is it? Like, I think I did watch the interview with David with Kingfisher, and what he said is absolutely correct. Like, it's a race you can't really win, man. Like, these guys are practicing all day. They don't. Well, I mean, it's unfair for me to say that none work or whatever, but I think the majority don't work full time. Um, so they can just it's like think of it like it's kind of like think of it like a race, right? Like a F1 race or whatever. And there's two cars going the exact same speed, like I don't know, 200 k's, right? but the first car's like already in front of you. Like if you never speed up,
Yeah.
you can't catch up. Like it's just
Yeah.
not it's not physically possible, right? So I think that's what it can be compared to. And I think the only way to do it is something like what Avant are doing, man. Like you need to have 5 players that are practicing extremely well on the same wavelength, studying the game. I don't know if they get along or not, but I assume they do because Hazard, Sterling, Soju, and Jira were all on the Trash Pandas roster, so they're all kind of mates. Hazard's pretty easy to get along with, and Pock is just Pock, I guess. So it's that's all the tools you need. Like if everyone's work ethic stays up to scratch, that's what you need to actually speed up a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
That's definitely what you need to do.
Right.
But does anyone have that other than Avant at the moment? I don't think so.
Yeah. So, would you say that? Well, I guess it's only really possible now for teams like in that sort of area to get there if they're playing at the same sort of, or they're playing the same sort of style and love of the game that the old Vox Eminar lineup had, where it was literally just we want to be the best, we don't have a lot of time, but we can sort of get it. And back then, I mean, I don't know how much the overall scene has improved, but they were going to majors and they were definitely playing lineups. And I remember back when they went to, was it a Gfinity where they beat.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Fnatic. They took a map off Fnatic and things like that. And
Yeah.
and back then they were able to do that even with the little amount of funding behind them. So. Is there anything that teams nowadays can learn from that, you think?
Look, I don't think there's too much to learn, man. Just the fact that it was possible was the main thing that people learned, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like they weren't the greatest team. JKS was extremely good, and still is extremely good. But they had players that were struggling. But I don't know. It was kind of just like the fact that it is possible to go overseas and do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mike's gone. Oh well. Let's just check everything. Well, you're unmuted on my side. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
I just lagged out for a second.
It's alright. That's what post is for.
Yeah. Okay, where was I? Yeah. So the fact that it is possible. Am I caught up or am I?
Yep.
Okay.
You're there, I think.
I'll just ignore looking at the screen. It's kind of behind, but that's fine. Yeah, the fact that it is possible, man, was the main thing to take from that. Yeah, and like the thing is we've come so close so many times, man. Like I remember when we were at the Beijing minor with Immunity, and that was Urcast, myself, Wizard, Grat, someone, Burn. We took a map off Renegades at the time. We 16-5 them, man, and we were one map away from making the major qualifier at the time. And that could have changed everything, for me.
Yeah.
That could have changed everything for Burn. Could have changed everything for Wizard. Obviously, Grad and Urk are fairly successful in their own rights, but I mean, Urk could have been. Urk is excellent, man. Urk is the most underrated player in Australia.
Yeah.
He could be on the Renegades for sure had we won that qual, So it's like, you just watch these opportunities to just be so close, man, and it motivates you that it is still possible. You can't really give up, and people have come so close before.
Yeah, the way you speak about it does sort of put the emphasis on how close so many times these teams get to that point. And obviously for the longest time, as much as Renegades have been, I guess, the representation of us, their place in that minor has, or always playing in that Oceanic minor, has almost kind of really capped how far, how much exposure these teams can get, right? Would you agree with that?
Man, I missed out on 2 major qualifiers losing to them.
Yeah.
The first was in South Korea, and the second was in Beijing. We lost to them in the qualifying match in both minors.
Yeah. It just, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? It's amazing what they're doing now, and it was always great to watch them play, and sometimes not so great. But it always felt like, in a way, their involvement in that minor, in that AU minor, has always been just a bottle cap in the ability for players to get through, and that's why this time, it's a big deal that they've made it all the way to the legend spot now, and it really gives a little bit more of a chance. But with the way they're playing right now, who knows what's going to happen, right? So
Well, like I tweeted out, man, everyone knew how big of an opportunity it was because they were legends.
yeah,
Everyone knew it. It was like the unspoken
yeah.
secret, right? Like no
The
one
reason
was
why
really.
everybody's that
Yeah,
underlying reason why everybody's celebrating for it.
yeah, yeah. Well, like that's the thing. Like as in terms of from a team perspective, we knew that this was a big chance, man. And that's why when I saw it when we lost, obviously, and we got knocked out, I'm like, man, like when's the next opportunity like that going to come around again?
Yeah,
And if anything, like Order might not even get that opportunity again. Like if Renegades drop out of Legends, which is you know, it's pretty possible, man. Like
yeah,
for them to get Legends twice in a row would be incredible. I don't think it's going to happen.
yeah,
Um, then they come back and play the AU minor, and there's only 2 spots, and Greyhound and Renegades go, and then when the next time Order is going to go again? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it was a big opportunity.
So I don't know the full details on this, but is the reason why they play in that AU minor because they have majority Australian players, or what's the exact classification that allows them to play in that minor?
Well, this is what was happening, right? Is Renegades were actually getting invited to every single Asia minor,
Mm,
not even having to qualify. So when they noticed that the competition in Australia was actually catching up, they said, "Hey, hold on, go and qualify through your own region. We're not just going to invite you, right?" And then they came over, man, and they almost didn't make it. Like Tainted Minds were 1-0 up.
yeah,
Minds almost knocked them out. Then we would have seen no Renegades Legend spot at all. So I think it's a good thing that they got pushed back and said, "Hey, go qualify through your own region." You know what I mean?
yeah,
But it doesn't make any sense for them to qualify through anywhere else. It'd be silly for them to qualify for the for an American spot. It just doesn't work. It's a major, right? It's just how they do it.
yeah, yeah. It's almost the same sort of way the World Cup works, I guess. With it being, it's about almost the nationality of the team more than,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah.
definitely.
So we were talking about that Renegades lineup. Now, obviously, everybody was super excited when they made it into the the champions. Is it the champion stage? Legend
Legends.
stage, and they made that top 8, and then they went into the next tournament and they got semis, didn't they? They beat, who did they beat? Was it Ents? I'm
I
trying to think
don't
of what
think it was
tournament this
Ents, but
was.
it was someone really good. Someone
Yeah,
up.
and then lost to Navi in the semis.
Yeah,
But it was all looking good at that point. I mean, what can you do when Simple's going God mode? But
yeah,
it's like it was looking really good, and then these roster, well, it wasn't roster changes. It was then the Gratisfaction problem happened, right? Where
yeah.
he wasn't able to play. They had to get wait as well. Who else was it that wasn't able? Was it Liaz? It was two
It was
originally, wasn't it?
maybe Jacob, maybe.
Oh yes, Jacob. Right, yeah, because they had 2 players out for one.
Yeah,
So then that happened, and then Grat took a hell of a long time to get back because of all that time away, and Smoothie had to come in and fill. And just now, we're finally getting this lineup back. So, do you have any sort of stock in the idea that it was because Grat and that wasn't there? Because from a lot of, I would guess, some points of view, Smoothie is a very good player, like
yeah,
skill-wise, right?
yeah,
So he can sort of slot into that position, but the way I looked at it was, well, it has to be a personality thing, right? Grat is maybe just a part of that team, and they need that environment. It always seemed like they needed a specific environment to play in to be good. So did you think that, or do you think that they can come back to where they were at that major position, or is that kind of gone now?
Look, it's no secret. I think it was a big overachievement.
Yeah,
What they did at the major, but they are an extremely good team, right? But they're the sort of players that you miss one part of the formula, and they are very structured. They are very drilled. Kassad's got a lot of protocols in place. I can see it when I'm watching him. I can see what he's done, right?
yeah,
If you look at it, if you focus, right? So if you bring a player or two in, and man, they're gonna forget. Like I think Azza was saying, they forget things. They're just kind of taking a lot more unnecessary risks. Um, and it's just a flow-on effect, and 100% they can get back to where they were. I think that Leaz is playing considerably better. than what he was at the start. I felt like Leah's at the start was kind of underwhelming. I have this clip imprinted in my memory where he had a bad game, but his team won or something. Maybe it was at the major, and then he's just had his like hands in his head, man. And I'm just thinking, like, dude, it's not all about your stats, bro. Like,
Yeah.
your team won, man. And I think that's something that's affected him for a long time. I think even in Australia, I mean, like he's a great player. All credit to him. He has had big games internationally, but I think he was always very conscious about his stats and getting into Renegades or getting overseas. Like, there's articles where he says, "I just want to be noticed internationally," and
Yeah.
and I don't know if that hurt them or not, but I think at the moment he's playing fairly well in his anchor positions. And there was a lot of criticism on him because him and JKS are very similar play styles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to cut it back to where I was going with this is that he is starting to come into his own at the moment. And then Grat being just a level head, he'll get back to his level. Azza seems to embrace the IGO role with the help of Kassad, and JKS is just bloody JKS, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, 100%, man. The roster can work, and they can get back to where they were for sure. And people are scared of them now. Like people aren't going to overplay and be overconfident against them because they know that Renegades are the real shit. Like Blave was tweeting about them, and they took a map off. They took a map of Australis at the major.
Mate,
and all
when
this
that
crazy
happened,
stuff,
I was losing my mind.
I
when
was
that
like,
happened.
this is not happening, man. Yeah. So look, I mean, there is obviously some criticism like from the start of that, but man, like what they've achieved is like unspoken, man. Like that's incredible, and I can't take anything away from that, man. And it wasn't so long ago, so they can definitely get back there.
Yeah, I was also very well. I know we were talking about Liaz, but I am really kind of impressed with his ability to move into more of a support role, right?
Yeah.
That he was this. At one point, definitely, I heard people saying they thought he was the best player in Australia, and I thought that was the reason why they put him into that lineup. And then for him to slide into the support role, I'll be honest, I wasn't. It wasn't like something where I was like, he'll definitely want to be a support player. Like, especially like you were saying from the interviews, it never really came across as like that was something he'd be willing to do. And then he slid into that and. Grat, I remember all the Twitch clips on Reddit about people saying Grat's the best AWPer in NA right now. And people going like, yeah, I'd pick him over anyone. And it's like, is he really? Okay, fair enough. And then he starts to show up at these moments, and sure, he's not carrying the team the way that JKS and Azza are, but he does have those maps where it's like, holy shit, okay, you get those glimpses of that nifty Inferno match where he's just nailing people down on Inferno. But so yeah, I was impressed with it, and like you said, you can't take anything away from that. That was it was incredible, and I almost the map against Astralis was almost. I think I was more hype about that than I was about them actually making it into the playoff stage.
Yeah. I played with Grat for almost 2 years, man. Like a year and a half or so. We went to many countries together, and like he just like he has a cool head, man, and he can all. He's fairly calm under pressure, and I guess that's kind of it, man. Like he just has raw skill, but it slowly developed over time. Like he wasn't like that from the start. And obviously, top level players in Australia like Speak and whatever. And like some people were pretty critical of Liaz, man, like before he went. Like people thought that he didn't have much impact. He was very baity, had his moments, but I think it was the CT side. One of the sides, like CT or T, like he didn't really do much and stuff like that. So then when he started to struggle under that new role, it wasn't really surprising, man. But I think, credit to him, he really adapted and overcame those doubts, and it's not easy because I don't know how strong his mental strength is. But I can't do anything but credit him. But like I said, I wasn't surprised. And a couple of players in Australia weren't either. Like, it was almost, I mean, for lack of a better word, he was a little bit overhyped, But like, look, man, like, who am I to say that when they achieve what they did as a team, right? Because as long as you get the right components, then the team works, and I think lately he's been playing really well.
All right. So to bring it back now to the general AU region, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is sort of? I guess we briefly touched on it before, but what do you think is the main things that hold back the AU region right now?
Like I said, man, it's us being in isolation
Hmm.
and you know having such a separated top three.
Yeah.
It's almost a race that you can't win. And I think that's holding us back. And we're trying to do everything that we can, and trying to hit those heights. But yeah, it has to be put down to isolation, man. And the whole world recognizes that. The Middle East also has the exact same issues. They're so isolated. The only country that they can play against anyone else is Jordan. Other than that, they get like 110, 150 ping. So
Yeah.
you can't dodge it. It's definitely the isolation.
So with those things, a lot of them do seem like it's these sort of ingrown technical issues that we have in the scene, being that isolation factor. But do you think there's any sort of like serious improvements that you see that the overall region and teams and players can be making? Is there something that you look at and go, man, I wish more people were doing that in this scene?
Um, Look, it is difficult, man. I think we need something like to outside of playing Division One, man. I don't know what the hell goes on in Div Two, Div Three, Div Four. I have no clue, right?
Yeah,
There's no place where I can see what's going on. I'm
yeah,
not gonna go and scour through the open ladders and things like that. I don't even know where they find scrims. You know what I mean? So maybe if we had some sort of like, if you look at like Dust2.us, like something like that for Australia, man, like maybe that could unify the scene and we can grow more together.
hmm,
Um, Dust2.us, if you're not sure, is like only for NA, and they post news about Div 2 roster changes and stuff like that.
right.
And they have more matches of like worse teams. I don't know how they do stats or whatever. Um, but yeah, just like I have no clue what the hell goes on outside of top eight, and that's an issue. Like that's kind of
Yeah,
an issue.
I mean,
Um,
it's similar for me, mate. So
yeah,
yeah,
I don't have a genuine interest, obviously, but it would be nice to. I mean, back in the day, we had got games, we had Sevo A, Sevo O, Sevo I, Sevo P, and you could work through the ranks. I don't know how it works now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Maybe because I came into CS:GO at the top already, I didn't have to work my way up again. But yeah, just something to unify us, man. Really, like it's not. There's no magic formula. Also Aussies will be Aussies, right? We're just all toxic bastards, and you know, people kind of like people just mess around way too much, man. So in general, Australia's always gonna Aussie's gonna Aussie really, and maybe that's
yeah,
a factor as well. But yeah, something to unify us would be nice. Yeah.
yeah. You could definitely tell that from the crowds at Sydney.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, in talking about improvements, when you come across these new players, you've just come into, you're talking about Void and Zemp being these new sort of players in this Ground Zero lineup. Is there something that you could say to a player that maybe in this AU region, let's say, who's in that, maybe that the backside of that top eight, that you would go and you would say, all right, this is what you need to be focusing on right now, rather than say just training your aim all the time? Is there something that you
Yeah.
that you see that maybe people aren't focusing on enough?
I'll give you the perfect example. Do you know what age Blitz started playing CS?
Not a clue.
24.
Okay.
So that he has a genuine interest to study the game and really take on and understand what makes these players and teams so great, right? So he didn't start young, and he started like he's older than me.
Yeah.
So like the reason I bring him up is because you need to use his approach, man. You need to be able to have a genuine interest to study the game, not just pug.
Mhm.
To watch a lot of demos, take notes, right? Review your notes, know your utility, be good at communication. Obviously, do your aim practice and whatever, and stick with a team, which he did with that Funky Monkeys lineup, and work your way through the ranks. And yeah, man, like you just need to stray away from just shooting things and actually study the game. Like that's the thing, man. You need to study the game, and players in Division One don't do that, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's it's 100% the way to go. 100%. Unless you have like the raw ability, like maybe like Texter, Even he like analyzes and studies the game a lot. But
Yeah.
also you have like really like raw ability like Texter, Dizzy, even Zemp,
Hmm.
um, who is like unbelievable with his individual talent. Um, and that's how he's sped up to where he is now. If you don't have those natural abilities, and Blitz doesn't either, Blitz isn't very flashy, then you have to take that approach that I mentioned.
Fair enough. So,
Yeah.
you know, how much of the, how much would you say, would your, if you had a percentage on it, how much would you focus on that demo review as a side to just the general play?
I would say at least 50%, man. Like 50% on the
Yeah.
study of the game. I would say like 40% to team practice, excuse me, and 10% maybe aim practice. But it all depends. Obviously, you need to work on your strengths and stuff like that.
Hmm.
For me, I don't get to play the game as much as others. So I would rather play CS from like 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. But if I didn't have those restrictions, I would be watching demos within those hours, if that makes sense. But I
Yeah.
have to find time in other parts of the day to watch demos. So it all depends on your schedule and your availability. But look, at least 50% on the study and the analysis of the game.
So when it comes to demos, would
Mhm.
you say to somebody who's coming up and coming, okay, look at demos from the top international level, or would you say look at the top Australian level?
You can watch Greyhound Chiefs, I think,
Hmm.
to some degree order. But man, like Greyhound are so good individually that it's going to be hard to understand what they're doing. Um, but yeah, watching international teams, especially from the same tournament, um, you know, basically like you watch Australis, you don't watch demos from last year, this year, and the year before, and whatever. You watch them all from one event, and you get a deeper insight to their playbook.
Hmm.
You watch them individually, you watch the strategies they run, the teamwork that they have, and then go and watch a couple of YouTube videos on how they communicate, ends to a series on how they prepare for events, and you see the way they talk to each other, you see the preparation, you see how serious this is, right? So you use all these tools that are available that we didn't have, 5-10 years ago in Counter Strike, and you understand like what's required basically.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I said, I mean to answer your question, Greyhound Order Chiefs, yeah, somewhat, but just go and watch the international teams, man. They do it best
So you
for sure.
mentioned Ensign Australis there. Are there any other key teams that you think of that you look at and go, this is a good team to learn from?
Um, Off the top of my head, man, like Ants,
Yeah.
um, big clan, uh, and this like you know even like any sort of old kind of clips where you can hear their communication and things like that.
Yeah.
um
The old
yes,
major
just
ones. Yeah.
any content that you can get your hands on, man, like just delve into it, right? The
Yeah.
CS Summit, man, like these some of these IGLs were sitting on a desk and just like giving you gold, like they're just handing it to you, right? And
Yeah.
I released a video on YouTube a couple of weeks ago on some advanced IGLing tips, man. And I watched it again. I was like, holy, like, man, I haven't seen anyone delve that deep, man, because I know for a fact that a lot of like almost all the top IGLs, they have that level of depth, right? I looked at it, I think, man, this is a gold mine. Like people really need to take listen to what I'm saying,
Hmm.
right? And it made me realize like people don't make enough use of the information that's out there. So just focus, man. Don't just watch, kind of thing.
All right. So finally, then, if you had
Yep.
to give advice, obviously you're an in-game leader. If you had to give some advice to in-game leaders right now, yeah, coming up in this scene and even in that sort of top 8 area, what would be the advice that you'd give them?
Look, it's a bit difficult because, like as I said, I was never an IGL until last year.
Hmm.
I took it on because I couldn't bear the fact I needed to bear the responsibility of losing, right, on myself. I couldn't, say to myself, man, my IGL didn't prepare us enough. He didn't review the other team. He didn't, fix this and fix that. So I took it upon myself, man. And I think that if you're really hungry to win, maybe you need to do something similar and really take some leadership in your team, whether you're calling the shots or not. So, man, just like kind of my advice would be like create your own path. Um, and take on that responsibility and do your best so that it doesn't affect your game. And I've given some tips in my IGLing video on how to not have it affect your game. You guys can watch that on my YouTube channel. But basically, I mean, if I was going to give you a quick summary of what I said is, the less you have to micromanage, the more you can focus on your game, right? So, as I said, like, do a lot of study and, like, just create your own path, man, and take on that responsibility, and maybe that will be what takes you to the top, because it is harder and harder at the moment to make your way up to the top with a team than it was in the past, yeah.
Fair enough. So, once again, thank you so much, mate, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I remember as soon as I started this, you were one of the first people that came to mind as somebody I wanted to talk to on this podcast. So I'm really thankful that you came on. And I hope that down the line we could maybe do this again in another context. And you were mentioning your YouTube channel there. So is there anything else you want to plug, the name of your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so just youtube.com/MoeycQ, and I do a lot of Twitch streams, which are really entertaining for some people. I wish people clipped more of the frag highlights and not just me smashing tables and things like that. But yeah, look, if there's enough interest, then I can start to do my own series and things like that. But just reach out to me if you have any questions. It always helps to reach out. And other than that, I guess yeah, man. Look, thanks for having me. I hope the next time we're chatting, I can kind of, if I'm able to do what I did with that Chiefs roster one more time, then I think that it's going to prove a lot of people wrong, man. And I'm pushing for that, and I don't think I'm going to stop until I reach that, man. So, yeah, definitely, although there's been, multiple setbacks, I think there's no doubt that we'll get there again, hopefully. So next time we chat, hopefully that's the case. But yeah, we'll do our best.
Lovely. Well, I certainly wish you guys the best over at Ground Zero, and you yourself personally. Thank you for coming on. This has been episode 11.
Shout out to Ground Zero as well.
Oh, yep. Yeah, shout out to Ground Zero.
They're really working with me on this project, and they have a lot of belief, and they trust my ability. They're a great management team, and probably one of the most underrated orgs at the top, to be honest. They deserve a lot more credit. So, Bo, if you're watching, mate, love your work.
Yeah, love you too, Bo. He's the one that got me started in this casting game, so absolute legend, Bo. The reason we're both here. So, all right, thanks for coming, man, and I'll see you guys next time. Just briefly though, this is going to be 2 episodes this week. I think maybe around Friday, Saturdays, the next one will come out. Panic, who's now on your team as well. So that'll be very interesting, as I'm sure he has a lot of great opinions. As he often
ask him about Avant.
Yeah, as he often says on the Twitter. Anyway, thank you guys for coming, and I'll see you next time. Peace.